this passage clearly shows that she knows how babies are normally born.
Yeah.
Like,
I think they all had their heads around that one back then. Sela, stall for me.
Yeah, that's such a great song. There's so much power in that song. This is the Morning Wake Up with Sela and Bjorn this morning.
Thank you.
Say what?
Come on now.
Say what?
Say what?
I found it.
Say what?
Say
I got the intro.
What?
Say what? Stop it!
We are joined in studio by Mr. Dale Campbell. He is the prayer leader of the Auckland Church Network, and he is our friend. Hello.
you need a friend in a world like ours.
Give it up for Dale Campbell. Good to
Cheers.
see you again, Dale.
Cheers, guys.
We get Dale in once a week. We do a little segment called Misheard Lyrics of the Bible, where basically we just take a look at a verse, maybe one that sometimes people trip over or have some questions about. Like, what does that mean? I don't know how to,
Yeah.
We dive a little bit deeper. But before we do,
Here
we
we
just
go.
had a look at Dale's Spotify Wrapped, because we were talking about Sela and Tab's songs. This is Dale's #1 song of the year for his listening
Hit it.
choices.
In Jesus' name. Come on. Yeah. In Jesus' name. Come on now. Get it in Jesus' name.
So good.
So this is Te Rotini, and this was only released a couple of months ago, and it's already your #1 for the whole year. So you must have thrashed the song in the last wee while.
It's in my backyard, working on my shed and stuff. Got the headphones on and just had to stop and just do a little jig.
You know what?
At points.
You may think this dude is a man of Christ, but he collared me on the broadcasting floor, like grabbed me by my neck and said, "You need to listen to this jam."
Oh yeah, I did that to you. Yes,
Well,
I remember that.
That was his #1 song. I did see on your list your #2. So
Radiohead.
Take a listen.
But I'm a creep. What?
He's a creep, he's a weirdo, but he's also a guest on our show.
Yeah.
Dale Campbell.
It's very true.
Thanks for your Spotify Wrapped this
Thanks for
morning.
invading my personal life, and it's great.
People want to know who you are, man.
No, it's good. It's good.
So what are we doing here this morning, Dale? What verse are we taking a look at this week?
So it's Luke chapter 1, verse 34. And some of these say what moments are easy to skip over, right? Because if you know the Bible well, if you've grown up in church, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is the Christmas story. This is fine. But in this story, not only do you have Mary being visited by an angel, which makes her a little bit concerned, right? But she's a little bit disturbed about this. But the angel says, you're going to have a child and call him Jesus. And Mary knows she hasn't slept with a guy yet. And so she's like, she has to
This
say
is
what,
odd, yeah.
a say what question, right? How can this be?
This music is playing in her head right now.
Say what?
Say what?
Oh, excuse me?
Oh my gosh, that's classic. So I've spent a lot of time over the years kind of arguing with atheists and people that don't believe the gospel, right?
Yeah.
And I think one thing that you sometimes hear, which is just, it's actually quite modernist, condescending attitude. It's like, well, those people were ancient. We understand things now. They didn't really understand how things worked. They didn't understand how babies were born. So they believed in miracles. We know now how babies are born.
Well, I guess they're saying we have a lot more science to explain things these days, where we could logically come to a conclusion about something that maybe back in the past they didn't have the tools or abilities to do.
There's a truth to that. And
I think they got birth though.
Thank God for science. All of that. Love science. But this passage clearly shows that she knows how babies are normally born.
Yeah, I think they all had their heads around that one back then.
I'm a virgin.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be happening. Okay, and I guess it just invites us to think about the miraculous. What can God do? This is the creator of all things, right? I love this the book Miracles by C.S. Lewis. I think it was written in 1947 or something.
Yeah.
But you read that, and it's just so relevant to debates that were happening with all the new atheism 10 or 15 years ago, and it's still relevant today. This little book Miracles, and he's talking about how the Creator is kind of selective in the way that he's entering the world, right? And in the Creator, you get the whole universe. You've got the Milky Way. You've got our solar system. You've got our planet. He chooses to act through humans. He chooses a family, the family of Abraham, Israel. And he finally and ultimately, in what he calls the grand miracle, chooses and selects a Jewish woman at her prayers and visits her and says, hey, this is time now. I'm ready to enter the world through you. And it's just this incredible miracle.
Incredible, to say the least.
But the conversation plays out in this passage, and like Mary's got questions. She's not just some passive like, oh well, sure, this is fine. I have no questions. But she's like, what's going on? And so the angel God through the angel explains, well, I've already done this with your cousin Elizabeth. She was barren, so this is going to happen, and it'll be in a different way with you. God can do anything. And I like the pivot. She starts out with, how can this be? And then she gets to that famous line, let it be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing
cool, eh?
that I always am amazed by in the story is, despite the insanity of the story in the moment, where if you try to picture being Mary and everything that's described and going on in there, it's a pretty big deal. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
More than anything else, right?
A once in human history event.
Just happening to her. And she just kind of says, yes.
Yeah.
Like, to
That's right. And she rightly, our Catholic sisters and brothers, they rightly see the significance that there is to Mary. And she's like a model for discipleship. There was a lot of masculine figures in the early church: Paul, Peter, James, John, you know, all these fellas, Philip. And she's this incredible motherly figure of discipleship who truly participates with the purposes and the will and plan of God.
Yep.
She's amazing.
For a lot of us, very, very hard to trust in the impossible.
Yeah.
Right? But for me, the application for this for me is, it's okay to ask God questions as Mary did.
That's right.
So young.
That's right. It's like God doesn't want to force. This is not forceful. This is not a male God saying this is happening with your female life, your body. It's seeking partnership, and she enters into that fully, intelligently, curiously, wondering what's going on, with some questions. But ultimately, she is the disciple. She's a follower of God and His ways.
Well said, our friend. Well said.
Good job, guys.
I think we need to play a little bit more of your favorite song.
Come on now.
The verse vibe to that one is just so good.
I see why it became your number one. Hey, thanks for coming in, Dale.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to dissect a little verse with you.